So 2022 was a pretty insane year for movies, and today I would like to kind of go through my top 10 list of favorite movies of that year. I know it's a little late, but I sort of missed out on a few movies last December, and I kind of caught them this month, so I would like to go over them. But firstly, I would like to go through a list of honorable mentions because there were just so many good movies, so I'll just feel bad if I leave these out, so yeah. So the thing is, I had to kind of go back to my letterbox because there's just so many damn good movies to go through. So yeah, I guess we can start with honorable mentions. Avatar: The Way of Water. I managed to catch this like not when it first came out. I kind of got sick for a few weeks, so I couldn't see it, but I did manage to catch it in IMAX, and wow, I just from a visual perspective, I know everyone and their moms talking about how great this movie looks, but it blew me away. I'm not gonna lie, and the and like the for a sequel, it did enough things to kind of keep things fresh. But the reason why this is kind of on the bottom of the list of honorable mentions is because I guess like the story didn't personally like resonate with me a lot. I think there are some aspects of the story that are quite admirable, but it's still in the honorable mentions. So I like this movie, and it's really cool seeing it kind of gross over like 1.8 billion dollars. I feel like it's probably gonna pass 2 billion. So yeah, The Banshees of Inisherin. This was a movie that's not really the type of movie I usually catch in theaters, but it's sort of like a slow drama movie with some comedic elements. But the writing was just so damn good, and there were some cool landscape shots. So, yep, it certainly earned that honorable mention thing. Ranking? That's not a ranking. Still a good movie, and I would recommend checking it out. Violent Night. This movie's, when you just see movies and you're like, this is for me. It's a Christmas movie, but also sort of a violent, almost home invasion-esque film, but it's also a comedy. David Harbour was amazing as Santa, and the movie was just a lot of fun with some pretty cool social commentary. Like most of the characters in the movie, they're terrible people, but it was still fun kind of watching them, and like a lot of the comedy that's derived from that just really worked. So yeah, a really weird Christmas movie, but a Christmas movie nonetheless. Clerks 3. Kevin Smith's filmography was always interesting because, especially with the Clerks movies, there's as vulgar as they are, there's usually a heart to them. And I really appreciated that about Smith's works. I mean, sure, some of his movies are just mainly comedic, and sometimes he does have a tendency to sort of lean into the fourth wall breaking and the so-called meta jokes a little too much, but I think Clerks 3 was a nice balance. The movie's premise kind of borders on a big fourth wall break-esque plot. It's a little hard to explain. Basically, the characters from the first two Clerks movie decide to make their own movie, which is basically like the first Clerks. It's a premise that worried me when I saw the trailer at first, but it worked out, and I feel like the emotional message that Smith was going for worked, and that was pretty cool. Goodbye Donglies is a movie that you haven't watched, you won't watch, and you'll probably forget about it right after I finish talking about it. But this was a really interesting movie. It was only playing for 2 days in my area, so I did manage to catch a screening. The theater was like around 75% full, so it wasn't a completely empty show, so that was nice. This is sort of a coming of age anime movie. I'm sure that's not like the most. I'm sure there's been movies like that before, but something about that movie just intrigued me. It's about three friends who go find a drone they lost in the middle of nowhere, or is it in a forest, I think. And yeah, it was silly. I mean, at one point, there's like a montage while Twinkle Twinkle Little Star plays. It's not. It's a sort of a. It's hard to describe, but the movie's just fun. And if you like coming of age movies, you'll probably like this one. And there's like this scene where the main group of kids try to fight a bear, and I don't know, like just things like that, and like sort of a movie that's sort of lighthearted, but also kind of deals with the aspect of growing up, and it worked. You know, it's a movie that is kind of underrated in my opinion. I know I didn't really do a good job of selling it, but go check out Goodbye Donglies. No one watched this movie, so it'll be nice to see some more opinions on this film. The Whale. I was kind of considering this to put it in my top 10, but there are just so many damn good movies. The Whale is... I don't... What can I say? Brendan Fraser's amazing. The entire cast is amazing. It's a dark movie, but it doesn't feel gratuitous, and I really appreciated about that. And go check it out. I believe it won a Golden Globe Award and some other awards. I think even Brendan Fraser won. I'm not sure if it was like a critics show or something, but he deserved it. This movie's kind of heartbreaking and at points a little hard to watch, but it was fantastic, and I would definitely recommend it. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. This was only playing for like a week in theaters, which is a shame because it was a lot of fun. You know, Daniel Craig was great, like the entire cast, Edward Norton, Dave Bautista. It was an all-star cast, everyone was entertaining, and as a mystery, it sort of kept me guessing, like in the halfway point. I think it's a halfway point. There's sort of like this massive 180. And yeah, it was a really fun mystery movie. And while I might not love it as much as other people, this should have gotten like a full theatrical release. Like, seriously. And the last for my honorable mentions is The Cursed. It was a werewolf movie. But good. The thing is, I haven't really watched many werewolf movies, but not only did this work as a horror, but I guess the central message just really worked for me. And it didn't really do well in the box office, so yeah. I'm not sure if most of you have heard of it, but it's a good creature feature. Well, not really, kind of. It's a good movie, so check it out. So I've been pretty vague with most of the movies up until now because this video will go on forever if I talk about why I liked each of these movies. But now for the actual top 10. Number 10, The Barbarian. I like horror movies, right? And this movie sort of felt, now this analogy has been used before, it felt like a Resident Evil movie. Particularly if you played the Resident Evil remake and maybe more so Resident Evil 7, you'll kind of be right at home. Now, granted, it's not exactly like a Resident Evil movie. Sure, the first act does remind... Well, not the first act. Well, the movie in particular just kind of reminds me of the first hour or so of Resident Evil 7, but in like a great way. And yeah, like the movie sort of has unexpected twists and turns, and it's a pretty spooky movie at points. Also a little gross, but you know, I think horror fans will love this movie, and I think a lot of horror fans really love this movie. It did pretty well, like critically, and I think financially. So yeah, The Barbarian. I wasn't like I wasn't expecting this movie to be this good. I just like heard about it and like some good things about it, so I checked it out. But I was legitimately blown away. Also, the scariest part of the movie is it takes place in Detroit, so take that as you will. Belle is an anime movie that released in 2021 in Japan, but 2022 in the US and Canada. And this movie isn't perfect. There are certainly flaws that I can kind of pick out, but what I really like about Belle is most movies that sort of talk about the internet and kind of satirize the internet, it's usually mainly criticizing it, and that's completely fair. I think that there's a lot to criticize about today's culture, but what Belle does is, yeah, sure, it makes fun of some of the stupid things that you can only see on the internet. It has this message that not only is the internet a place to kind of mock and belittle others, but a way to sort of show your passions and connect. And I think, I keep using the word resonated and connected, but that's exactly what I did. And what the movie did. And I really like that. And visually, it looked amazing as well. In fact, I like this movie so much, I ended up getting the Steelbook, and I really like the design of the Steelbook. It's great. So yeah, Belle, a movie that sure is like entertaining, and it's a musical, and I think the music did sound good, so that's certainly a plus. But yeah, visually it looked great. The message resonated with me, and the voice acting was great. But that's sort of a thing with most anime movies. So yeah, I guess people are surprised that the movie made it on the list, but that's personally a favorite of mine. Number 8, The Menu. When I saw the trailer, I'm like, this looks interesting. And it's sort of a movie much like something like The Hunt, where it's not really a typical comedy, but there's certainly a dark comedic edge to it. I think whether you like the movie will be much reliant on whether the satire works or not. And for me, the satire worked wonderfully. And I'm not even someone who's well accustomed with food and chef culture and all that, or whatever you call it, but it just worked really well. I think it's sort of a message that could kind of extend beyond cooking, and just people who kind of take their passion so far that they kind of become a pretentious asshole. And yeah, the movie did have a bit of a slow start, but once it got going, and I almost loved every second of it. Bullet Train is an action movie, well, kind of more like a thriller movie. It takes place in a train. And, the writing was fun, the action was well directed, and the cast was great. So, that just made for a movie that was a whole lot of fun. And, yeah, that's all I have to say, pretty much. Some movies are just fun, and they just nail every aspect, and Bullet Train does that, and that's why it's one of my favorites. Pinocchio. The Del Toro one, not the Disney one. I didn't see the Disney one. I didn't hear many good things about it. This movie was great. You could just feel the love. It's in stop motion, so it took forever to make. It's Del Toro, so obviously visually it looks amazing. But sort of the story and how it reinvents the story of Pinocchio, exploring themes like mortality, in a way that children and families, children and families can watch this movie, and they can enjoy it. The movie is I suppose pretty straightforward, but you can dig deep, and it just, oh my god, it does everything I want in an animation. It utilizes the medium to its fullest, and has a pretty insane but grounded story. And yeah, I saw this movie twice in theaters, and I loved it both times. So, and much like Glass Onion, it had a limited release, which is a massive shame. But hey, Pinocchio was a great movie, great animation, and massive props to Del Toro. And yeah, it's still kind of a shame that a lot of people, especially in Hollywood, still think animation is just for kids, even though it's a whole medium. But hey, at least we got a really awesome movie, and I think it won a Golden Globes for Best Animation, and it is much deserved. Although, I didn't watch every single animated movie this year, so yeah, so who am I to talk, right? Now, this is a movie I assure you no one watched. It was playing in the Toronto Japanese Film Festival. It's called Junkhead. Much like Pinocchio, this is a stop-motion animated movie, but it was only, it's mostly made with one guy, and all the characters kind of talk they don't talk in a human language. It's I don't know how to explain it. I guess it's something like in those old, I'm not sure, Zelda games or something, where the subtitles pop up, but the characters are murmuring something else. But this movie was special. Not only was it mind-blowing and impressive, since most of the movie was kind of constructed by one guy. But there's a sense of humor, as well as this like fascinating world that is built that just hooked me from beginning to end. And the movie does end a little abruptly, but if anything, I think that just shows how impressive a movie, not only from a technical perspective, but like just from a story perspective. And this was a great movie, a fantastic accomplishment. I hope it gets some sort of wide release, because more people should check this out. And as a dark sense of humor, that did appeal to me. A dark and like not overly dark, but more so a weird sense of humor that I really liked. So yeah, Junkhead, one of my favorites. So number 4, Top Gun Maverick. This was the movie where you know when a movie's good, but some of the fan reactions just get a little much. People say this is the only good movie that Hollywood made in the last 10 years and stuff like that. But regardless of the annoying fandom and the people who claim this is American propaganda or whatever, American military propaganda, as a movie, this was great. It's a classic blockbuster. The story's pretty simple, but it worked. And the action scenes, the actors actually flying those jets, and that just really elevated the movie. So Top Gun Maverick, because the first Top Gun, it was fine. I wouldn't really rush to watch it again, because I don't know, the first Top Gun, like, sure, from a technical perspective is impressive, but from a story character perspective, it didn't really do much for me. But Top Gun Maverick, I really liked it. It's sort of interesting. It sort of appeals to both people who liked the first one and people who weren't really huge fans, so that is pretty awesome. Number 3, The Batman. I like Batman, I made it pretty abundantly clear. I'm not sure if I talked about Batman a lot on this channel, probably not, but I like Batman. I like all sorts of adaptations. I haven't read a whole lot of the comics. I read a good chunk of them. But, like, with Batman, you just have so many cool adaptations. You have the animated series. You have the Batman Arkham video games that are just so great. And then you have some of the animated movies. You have some of the live-action movies, like the Nolan trilogy. But The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, it captured the essence of a Batman comic. It's sort of this dark mystery, but sort of a superhero film as well. And just the way it was shot and the way the plot progressed. Like, many people thought the movie was too long, but I personally liked the kind of steady pace it went with, like, Batman slowly uncovering hint after hint, and then you have some cool action scenes, and it felt like a fantastic adaptation. It changes some things, but it never betrays the source material. At least that's what I think. And the casting was pretty great. Paul Dano as the Riddler, he was pretty cool and terrifying. And Robert Pattinson, a lot of people were a bit skeptical of his casting. I was sort of iffy, but I thought he did great. And Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman was pretty fantastic as well. So this is the Batman movie. See what I did there? It's a movie that works as an adaptation, works as a movie, and it might not be for everyone because it doesn't feel like a typical superhero movie, but I love that movie for that very reason, so that's why it's my number 3. And I could talk about this movie all day, but believe it or not, there are 2 movies that I liked a little more than The Batman. Number 2, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, number 2 and number 1 is interchangeable, but Everything Everywhere, it had everything I wanted in a movie. Hence the title. The story is bonkers, but there was this emotional heart to it. The characters are well realized. The action scenes are insane. What more can I say? Everyone talked about this movie to death, and for good reason. And I feel like it's a movie that I would want to revisit almost every year or so. And I absolutely loved it. But number one, I kept debating, like I said a second ago, whether I should put Everything Everywhere in number one or this movie in number two, but The Fablemans. This movie just hit me on a emotional level, but much like Everything Everywhere, but sort of in a different way. Everything Everywhere kind of presented the situation that, while you may not be able to relate to it fully, you completely connected to the characters and you're emotionally engaged from minute one. But The Fablemans, I guess, as a creative person, the story just sort of, I guess it felt a little more personal to me, and that's not to throw shade at Everything Everywhere. I love that movie, but The Fablemans just, sure, it is a movie about filmmaking, but there's also this family drama element to it that kind of meshed really well, and I was engaged from the first minute to the end, and that's the case with most of the movies on this list. But it felt so personal, and as a person who's sort of pursuing creative medium, it just, there were so many scenes that just that just kind of hit me really hard, and I this is my favorite movie of 2022, and I actually managed to catch it at TIFF, and that was a whole nother another great experience. But yeah, that is my top 10 favorite movies of the year, as well as some like 8 honorable mentions. This year has been pretty fantastic with movies, and I'm sorry if this video maybe I didn't go in depth enough, but there were a lot of movies, and I didn't write a script for this. I just started talking about why I like these movies. So yeah, here's hoping that 2023 will be a pretty great year for movies. There's a lot of anticipated films. Maybe I should do a video on that, but yeah, 2022 was pretty great. I'm looking forward to 2023, and yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.